What's up, guys? This is Jan for Chess24, and we will look back at round number 10 of the Chess Olympiad, the penultimate round, where in the open section, 3 teams still had a realistic shot at gold. That is the United States of America in the lead, the big favorites at this point. The Ukrainians, who have the same amount of match points and are still very much in contention, and then 1 point behind the Russian team. We will focus on those teams in our review of the open section and then switch over to the women's section, where China went into this round with a 1 point lead over Poland. Let's start with the big match on board 1, the USA versus Georgia, a team that has been overperforming, led by Badur Jobava, who has like 8 out of 9, something insane on board 1 for Georgia. Faced Fabiano Caruana today on the top board for the USA. But we start on board number 2, where things started pretty well for Georgia because Hikaru Nakamura started playing a little too aggressively after the opening. This is a theoretical position where people normally play rook c1. There have been some games with f4 as well, trying to push this pawn. But Hikaru Nakamura goes for e4, sacrifice a pawn, d takes c, d5, quick break in the center. And his opponent, Mshedlishvili, very solid player, just takes everything he can. After cd5, rook fd1, we see Nakamura's point. He wants to go ed5 and then build a powerful initiative with his active pieces. But Mshedlishvili comes up with a very clever move, d4, that throws a serious spanner in the works. Since after rook d4, there is the move queen to b6, and white cannot take on c4 because of the pin. Cannot get his pawn to d5, so things have gone wrong very badly here for white. Hikaru, of course, realized this and instead of rook d4 went for bc4. But now the pawn on d4 stays alive. Knight to c6, queen b7, queen c8, and this is just a horrible position for white. This pawn on d4 is too strong. The black pieces are doing very well. And Nakamura did not manage to save this game against Mshedlishvili. Here we see him, well, he's still optimistic in the opening, but he went on to lose. However, it is a team competition, and the USA, who I believe this is only their second loss in the whole tournament, have been very stable as a team. This match was no exception. We see Sam Shankland here in the background, in the purple, is that purple? The purple shirt. He went on to win his game on board number 4 against Tonike Zanikidze, an opponent rated lower than 2500, something you don't see every day on board 1 of the Chess Olympiad. But it happened in this game. Shankland outrated his opponent almost 200 points and went on to win convincingly. Here we see him moving in for the kill already, turning rook takes h7 followed by rook h3. And rook e1 check, king f2 does not help. Zanikidze tried to give a couple checks, but there is no perpetual, and Zanikidze went on to lose this game. So that's 1-1, and speaking of so, that wasn't on purpose actually, but Wesley So, the top scorer, won another beautiful game on board 3 for the United States, while the big game between Jobava and Caruana on board 1 was relatively peaceful, at least for the involvement of Badur Jobava, a quiet-ish Joko piano, where I believe the balance was never seriously disturbed. Long story short, the USA won their match against Georgia. Hard fought, but they won. 2.5, 1.5, and they stay in the lead in this Chess Olympiad. However, the Ukraine, of course, wanted to keep the pace, and they faced an opponent that has been overperforming as well, the Czech Republic. Feels to me like the Czech Republic have fielded the same team the last, 10 Olympiads maybe. It's always Navara, Laznička, Racek and Babula. Don't fact check that, it's probably not true, but it does feel like that, and they've been doing very well in this one. Earned themselves a meeting with the Ukrainians that have, of course, played a fantastic tournament as well, only losing to the US, winning all their other matches, included against Russia. And we will have a look at the encounter on the top board between David Navara for the Czech Republic and Pavel Ilyanov for the Ukraine. After knight g4, white is a pawn down, but it looks like he has a very dangerous initiative. Bishop takes d4 would be very well met with queen takes d4, followed by knight f6 check, winning a piece. But Pavel Ulyanov shows his skills as a defender here. First he goes king g7, moves his king into this queen's diagonal. His point being after d5, he can control everything with bishop d4. So Navarra plays rook e4, trying to control his d4 square in order to push his pawn. And now a move that impressed me a lot. Looks very passive, but it's very strong. The move rook to f8. Ulyanov is saying, okay, give you a little check. After d5, I'll just play f6. I just covered that pawn, and you can't really hurt me. And that turned out to be true. Now black is just much better. A pawn up, the white attack is over. And Ulyanov went on to win this game very convincingly. We're just gonna click through a couple more moves here. After h5, black turns out to be just a piece up. Ulyanov finishes with a petite combinaison. Queen takes e6, d takes e, knight e2 check with decisive material gains. So big point there on board 1 for Ukraine by Pavel Ulyanov against David Navarra. And Ukraine went on to win their match quite convincingly as well. Because there was another victory by Andrei Volokitin, whom I hadn't heard of very much in the last couple of years, but he's back playing a great tournament on board 4, beating Babula. Therefore 3-1 for Ukraine, keeping pace, but still with the worst tiebreaker compared to the US, will be an uphill battle to claim gold. Speaking of uphill battle, of course the Russians, 1 team point behind, would love to still enter the race for the gold medals, but they had a tough opponent. They faced India, and that's not an easy match. The young Indian team has been doing very well. Here we see Vladimir Kramnik and the Russian coach Filatov watching. Magnus Carlsen also watching. Doesn't seem that busy with his own game. We've seen him watch the USA match earlier. Now he's at the Russia match. Let's see how it went down. Vladimir Kramnik played a very nice game. I'll just show you a position almost before the end. Well, it is very close to the end, where we see the white bishops completely dominating the situation. That's what you're dreaming of. These bishops controlling the knights. Rook h5 check is a very nasty threat. And after knight h6, Kramnik shows us that sometimes it's okay to give up a powerful bishop if it leads to instant material gains. After rook g7, rook h5, this knight is falling. And therefore Adiban had to resign. That's a full point for Russia. But it's not the end of the story, because on the top board for India, Mr. Hari Krishna has been playing a great tournament. He's facing the World Championship challenger Sergei Karyakin. And hang on. Here we see Hari. And Hari develops a serious initiative by going knight to g4 with the clear intention of going knight f6 check, picking up this queen, which is not so easy to parry. Karyakin tried to do so by going queen to f5, but that turns out to be a very rare blunder by Sergei Karyakin, because after knight hf6 check, this knight turns out that black cannot really capture here, because that would run into a different family fork. Knight takes h6, attacking both queen and king, winning the game instantly. Therefore, after knight f6 check, king h8 had to be played, but now white just takes on e8. Rook e8, rook c7, and he's an exchange and a pawn up. And of course, that is game over at this level. Hari went on to convert without problems, scoring a full point for India. And that's all that happened in that match. The 2 other games ended peacefully in draws, which means the encounter ends with 2-2. That is pretty much the end of Russia's hopes for gold. They're now 2 match points behind Ukraine and USA, who are both facing weaker opponents in the final round. Russia is not going to win this Olympiad either. Of course, big disappointment for them. Didn't do all that badly really, but chips didn't fall where they had to. However, gotta give props to the young Indian team, especially their leader Hari Krishna. Look at this result on board 1, facing some of the best players in the world. Has not lost a single game, scoring some big points against Karyakin and Mamedyarov. That's what you want out of your top board in the Olympiad. Very impressive job by Hari. who at age 30 just establishes himself as a full-fledged world-class player. Kudos to him. Speaking of world-class players, there is a gentleman whom we've seen walking around a lot, not Vladimir Kramnik, Magnus Carlsen. Here we see him staring at his board 2, Jon Ludvig Hammer, who's not had a great Olympiad. And indeed, Magnus Carlsen had a relatively quiet day at work, facing Iran's Guy Magimi with white. Carlsen played the London system, got a nice position out of the opening, but nothing to write home about. However, after knight h7, queen g3, rook g8, turns out that, Guy Magimi's king was stuck in the middle, and that's not a good thing to have against the world champion, who just methodically opens the position up. Now there's all kinds of threats based on knight d6 check. There's just no defense. Game tried king e7, b4, queen b4. Magnus having a little fun here, clearing this d6 square for his queen. If the black queen goes anywhere, say queen here, queen d6 check, king e8, knight c5. It's just totally devastating. Therefore, black tried knight to e4 to cover that, but after knight takes b4, knight takes g3, f takes g. White is a piece up, which should be enough. Bishop b5 still asks a question about this pin. And Carlsen answers this question without particular troubles. Goes rook f7, king f7, knight d6. Picks up the rook on c8 and stays a piece up, because this knight is not quite trapped. Escapes after knight d3. Guy Magimi had seen enough, loses to the world champion, who's quietly having a decent tournament. 7 out of 9, a couple draws against lower rated players, but also many wins by now. He's, I think, losing 1 or 2 rating points, but not too bad. That's the world champion. Whom else should we check in with? One guy that probably won't become world champion or win a medal in this tournament. Well, not a team medal, I should say, but deserves to be checked in with is Filipino Eugenio Torre, who at age 64, before this game, had 8 points out of 9. And spoiler alert, he went on to win again against Scotland this time around. His opponent played the move rook e8, which is a bit of a serious blunder. Maybe you spotted it already. Rook e8 just runs into knight takes g6, and it's game over. Can't do anything. Queen g6, rook takes e8, queen takes f4, rook takes e8 check, rook takes e3, queen takes d6. Nothing you can do about it. Queen d8 was played, but this g-pawn was kind of important. So Torre scoring another win. Let's have a look at his score. It is, 9 out of 10? Winning 41 rating points at age 64. Not bad, Mr. Torre. So let's see how the standings are in the open section after this penultimate round. The US and A are in the lead with 18 match points. Ukraine also 18 match points, but worst tiebreaker. Russia full 2 points behind with 16. In the final round, it's the US versus Canada. That's, of course, an exciting matchup, but Canada is outmatched on paper. They're led by Yevgeny Bareyev, who used to play for Russia, former world-class player. Then they have Chess Bra, Eric Hansen, but they need a miracle to deal with this powerhouse of a US team that is now an overwhelming favorite to bring the gold medal home. Then we have Ukraine facing Slovenia. Ukraine also heavy favorites, but they need the USA to lose points. Russia against Italy, also a big favorite, but if there's no miracles, it will be USA, then Ukraine, then Russia for the medals. However, sometimes miracles happen, so stay tuned and check out the final round. We are moving on to the women's section, where the top match was the match between China, who are in the lead, and Poland, only 1 point behind. China, of course, a big favorite on paper against Poland. Struggled a bit because their board 2, Zhu and Jun, went on to lose. But on the other boards, they dominated. And we will have a quick look at the finish on board number 4. One of their goal-getters, Tan Chongyi. No mercy here. Goes rook takes h5, gh5, queen h6 check. Actually, black resigned after rook takes h5. And scores a full point for China. Hu Yifan also won her game on the top board. Therefore, victory for China, who keep dominating this tournament, but they can't celebrate yet because Russia is only 2 match points behind, and Russia won their game against powerhouse Georgia, which means that Russia still has a chance for the gold medal. Here we see Kostenyuk and then Gunina, their main goal-getter, on board number 2. Let's have a quick look at Gunina's game. Typical Gunina effort. Very sharp play. Here she goes for g5 followed by f5. Setting the board on fire. Pushes the pawns further with f4. Of course, leaving some weaknesses behind. Therefore, this position is very, very risky. After g3, my computer shouts at some points that white should be better, especially here. After c4, bishop f4, bishop c5, bishop e3 would have made the computer very happy and probably won the game for white, because there seems to be no defense after bishop d6, bishop d4. Black's defenses are just overstretched. However, in the game, king h1 was played, and after king h1 it's a different story, because Gunina shows her tactical prowess by going knight to d3. All of a sudden the complications are no longer in white's favor. After queen e7, bishop e7, this is hanging, this check is in the air, this is hanging. White could still stay in the game with a tricky move d6, but that was not going to happen. Instead, rook e7 happened, and after rook f4, black has a very serious initiative. A couple moves later, Gunina was just material up. Here she's threatening rook h1 checkmate, and after knight 3, knight d1. The game is pretty much over. Another full point for Gunina with the black pieces, who I believe she's won all her black games now. Is that correct? 6 victories with black and 1 win with white, 2 draws. But normally she's just winning with black. Doesn't matter if the position is good or bad. Big, big goal getter for this Russian team. And since the Russian squad won their match against Georgia by the smallest possible margin, they will face the Chinese team in the final round, which I'm not an expert, but I believe if Russia wins this, they can still win the gold, have a bit of a comeback. So there is a lot of tension in this final encounter in the women's section. Who would have thought that China and Russia don't meet all tournament? We will have to stay tuned, check it out. Of course, China 2 points ahead. Have draw odds, which is a big, big problem for the Russians, but there certainly will be a fight. What else can I tell you? In the women's section, there are many different levels and many different ages represented, so we shall have a look at one of the younger participants, 9-year-old Fiorina Berezovsky from, I believe, Monaco, having a tough day at the office. This picture is from yesterday. Today, things didn't go very well for her. She went on to lose, but still, at age 9, I think she has 2 out of 5 in the Olympiad. Very impressive showing, and goes to show you how diverse this event is. The game today, however, didn't go so well. And since I struggled a little bit with pawn endgames yesterday, let's look at another one, because this one I'm pretty sure I got right. That, yeah, here. White doesn't have enough pawns left, and black is winning. No matter whose move it is, king b3 would have been my choice, but d1 queen got the job done, and Berezovsky lost her game, of course, still. Very impressive. Not game, but diversity in this event. Okay, before I dig myself an even deeper hole, let's end this video, sum it up, that the USA look poised to win the open section if they can defeat Canada. If they can't, they will blame Canada. But of course, they are the overwhelming favorites in the women's section. The Chinese women are a big, big favorite to win, but they still have to deal with the Russian team that I believe, I haven't done any math, can overtake them should they win their last round encounter. Stay tuned. Thank you guys for watching, and hopefully see you soon.